Welcome to the Bucket List Life Podcast with Trav Bell, the world's #1 bucket list expert. Bucket List Life's mission is to help you get off the treadmill, stop Groundhog Days, hack your habits, and live a regret-free life. Because we know life's way too short not to live your bucket list life. So please welcome your host, Trav Bell, the Bucket List Guy.
Hey bucket listers, welcome to another episode of the Bucket List Life podcast. I'm so stoked that we've got Todd Morgan here. Hey Todd, how you going?
Feeling good, mate. Feeling really good. Very excited for this. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. We shared the stage, what was it, last week or the week before, I think, at a men's mental health event, which was a packed room. We're talking all about men's mental health. And are you doing a lot of that sort of stuff with what you do?
No, not those sort of event type of things. It's probably something that personally, I need to probably get into more of, and we're talking off air before around what you do and getting into businesses and conferences and that sort of stuff, which is awesome. It's probably something I need to do more to be able to get the OTLR name out there. What we do is more community based, so more going into businesses, running sort of that 60-minute or 30-minute sessions, and our big one is sporting clubs. So any sort of sport, if you can think of it and name it, we've probably been there. Quidditch, ultimate frisbee, triathlon, rugby, hockey, football, netball, basketball, the list will just go on. We've probably been there. And in every state in Australia, plus New Zealand and the UK, we've worked over there as well. So our main thing is sort of going to those sort of tight-knit communities and providing the education there. But no, I would like to get into more of those events.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Well, how did... The company's called Outside the Locker Room. What's the when did that start, and what do you do?
Yeah, so it started in 2015. The founder was Jake Edwards. He played AFL football, was in the system with Carlton for 3 years, went through his own mental health challenges, and his story is sort of well documented in other podcasts that you can go and find.
He's actually been a guest on this podcast. There you go.
Oh, there you go. Fantastic. I didn't even know that.
He was on Married with... no, we did it just after he was on Married at First Sight, and we weren't actually allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, look, wasn't probably the greatest experience for Jakey boy, but no, really, really good man. Through his recovery, he started OTLR, which was to just literally use sport. And back when he started it, no one was in sporting clubs. Obviously, the power of sport is huge. You walk into a sporting club, you got 60 to 100 mates straight away. All you got to do is pull on the same jersey or the same jumper, and you've got those mates, and then you've probably got the extra 100, 200, 300 supporters that are friends as well. So for those that are out there that are kind of lonely, you join a sporting club and away you go. You've got your community. So it was a really good idea that he had started in sporting clubs. I came along in the end of 2017, and then took over from Jake when he moved on in the middle of 2021. So currently the CEO, and what we do is sporting clubs is our bread and butter. We go in, we run 2 education sessions per season. They go for 60 minutes. The first one is mental health, and we try and focus on both the positive and the negative sides of mental health and support. So the first question we ask, they're very interactive sessions, is around, well, what do you do for fun and what makes you happy? It's a question that over 25s, and what we're finding is that under 25, we go, give us a list of 11, and they'll give it to you in 60 seconds. But you ask anyone over 25, give me 3, and they sit there and stare at their post-it note and they struggle.
Welcome to my world. I'm forever asking adults, what do you want to do in life? And over 40, it's like blank stares. Some people have got a really big list because they've been through something. It's funny, on the back of, whether it be mental health or some sort of drama in their life, trauma in their life, that they have this renewed sense of, perspective towards the future. And then, bang, big list is created, big new perspective is created as well. But for the majority, unfortunately, it's blank stares.
It is. And that question that we asked there is probably the most powerful question that we ask, that then gets transferred over into other places. So I was with a mate the other day. He was at a footy club. We ran the session there. He then took it to, he works for quite a big construction company and is a project manager there. And in his one-on-one meetings, that's the first question he asked now. What are you doing for fun and what makes you happy outside of work? And it catches people off, but it opens up a conversation that's a lot better, so that if their only thing is work, then he starts to rectify that, because everyone knows burnout, productivity will go down if it's just work all the time. So it's a really powerful question. But the other thing too for us with that question is it opens up the room to go, that person over there likes fishing. I like fishing. I could go fishing with that person. We weren't really mates beforehand, but now I'm going to go fishing. Or, most sporting clubs I go to, you got a lot of people that like golf now, but they don't talk to each other and figure out that 50% of them like golf, or we could go golfing on a Sunday after we played on a Saturday, and still get that community feel throughout the week, and especially over the season where they're not there. And that's a really important part. Is your sport is during winter or summer. How do you stay connected to those people in the off season? Well, it comes down to the things you do for fun and what makes you happy.
And on that, you personally, what do you do for fun? And what makes you happy? Are you the result of like Jake coming and doing a program at your footy club? How did you arrive at being CEO?
No, so I was volunteering for different sort of organizations and charities probably since I was 22 or 23, and running just different event nights where people would come tell their story, raising money for Beyond Blue. That came off the back of, I've lost a fair few mates, suicide and drug overdoses and accidents throughout my time, but I lost my best mate to suicide. His mum and Jake were on 60 Minutes. So the 60-minute story you can find on YouTube. And inside that's a 15-second clip of myself crying my eyes out nationally TV, talking about my mate. And it was from that Deb, Fitzy's mum, said, go work for outside the locker room and go and tell Fitzy's story, and which is, there's some harrowing parts, but the part she wants to tell is that communities are pretty amazing. So if you can create a really good culture at work or a sporting club or in some sort of community group or inside your own friendship group, that's the most important part. And Fitzy was great at that. You'd walk into a room and he would come and give you a hug and a smile, and he'd check in on you and say, how are you? And he was very, very infectious, and he was great. But for him at the time, he wasn't part of the footy club, which was a massive part of his life. And that's the really sad part for us, was he was only 2 weeks away from going back to pre-season. So had he gone through that while still involved in the sporting club, that's what Deb tries to push, that having people like myself or our facilitators and our welfare professionals go into these communities, they're just normal people, rather than sitting in a white room with a white coat trying to talk about your feelings. You get someone to come in and go, I don't want to talk about my feelings, but how I want to be supported is when I'm down, I just want to go kick the footy. Like, let's just go kick the footy, and that's going to make me feel better. And then I'll probably fix my own challenges later by just going to do something that I enjoy doing, whether it's golf or walk the dogs or whatever that may be. So that's how I got involved, and then worked my way through from 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, full time. And then Jake left, and I took over as CEO and been doing that ever since.
Who's the founder? Like who's on the board, and what's the structure look like?
Our board's quite an array of people. So we've got Jo, who's been in business and government for a really, really long time. Very, very smart lady, and very risk adverse, which is great, because when you've got someone like myself who's very, let's go and do stuff really quickly, Jo sort of goes, let's slow it down. Let's just see what's...
Is Jo a lawyer?
No, the chair of our board's a lawyer, Grant. So Grant, same sort of thing. He's got sporting clubs with a really big background of his. So Jo really is a good one with our board, because she hasn't really come from that sporting background. So she brings in that whole, let's look at it as a business, charity, non-for-profit sort of thing. Grant does the same, but has that sort of understands the sporting culture, which is awesome. Then we've got Luke Ball, so ex-St Kilda Collingwood champion. I'm a Collingwood supporter, mate, so he's a Collingwood champion to me. But really smart, like AFL Players Association president for a really, really long time. It just brings in that understanding of what are AFL clubs doing, what are professional sports doing, and then how do we potentially incorporate that into community. And the last one is Corey Sells. So Corey was a facilitator of OTLR longer than I've been a part of OTLR. He took OTLR into Queensland. Really, really amazing human being, got a great story. But he really brings, again, a really amazing businessman as well. But bringing that feel of, I've been at the grassroots of OTLR, I can really sort of understand where we're trying to go from that aspect, and still facilitates nowadays. So a board member that still facilitates, and can really see from being a sporting club president for a long time, manages a really successful business. So can see the business sporting club aspect, and has had kids that have, only just finished high school 3 or 4 years ago. So understands the schooling landscape as well. So it's a really diverse board, which makes my life easier when going in there and trying to get some advice.
So give me some numbers. What are some sort of numbers that that the programs, how many people have gone through the program? How many programs a week, a month, year are you currently doing?
So over 55,000 participants in our programs. Over 1,200 sessions have been completed since 2015. Yeah, it's pretty good. We sort of, obviously COVID was a really big struggle. We didn't transition quickly enough to online. we have a welfare sort of aspect to us, which is resources that we send out, which is awesome. Probably the big one for us is what we call our wellbeing partnership. So last year we had 4. And what they are is sporting organisations or associations or leagues around the
like
country.
AFL, NFL, etc.
So more like your local footy league, or for us, your Brisbane Lions. We had 4 last year, where we provide our welfare app that connects to our partner counselling service. It's got all our resources and stuff through that. We're already doing that anyway. So we become wellbeing partners for free with them, provide them with those resources, provide them with the safety net. A good year for us is if we never hear from them. That's just the nature of our beast. If they never call us and go, hey, we've had a suicide or a death or a self-harm, that's awesome. I want to hear from you. I just want to hear how everyone's going really well. So I had 4 last year. We're at 38 now with another 5 to come on board. And that ranges from Hockey WA, Hockey Victoria, Ultimate Frisbee in both Queensland and Victoria.
Is that a league?
Yeah.
Ultimate Frisbee?
Yep. Ultimate Frisbee.
It's probably huge and I don't even know.
Yeah, it's all those sort of obscure sports. So we've got 10-pin bowling Australia on board. We're really trying to get darts. So if darts wants to come on board, we'll get onto that. Triathlon. But a lot of different footy leagues around the country that we're a part of, a lot of netball leagues, a lot of basketball associations. So what you'd think your local basketball club is actually 1,000 athletes in that. There's so much more. And one of probably the big ones that we do work with is Urban Rec Australia, which is probably one of the most amazing organisations you could ever hear of. They have around about 12 to 15,000 athletes a year go through their sports. They have 12 different sports. I can't list them for you. But what it is like dodgeball, netball, mixed netball, court hockey, that sort of stuff.
Dodgeball's an association?
Well, under Urban Rec it is. So it's never about your skill with Urban Rec. It's about fun. So at the end, you obviously score, but the winners at the end of the year is the team that has the most fun. So you get your score from the game, but you also get voted on your fun point. So if you're a serious team that only wants to win, your fun point might be 1 out of 5.
Mate, I've learned something today. There we go.
Yeah, Urban Rec, mate, are absolutely great. So Danny and the team up there are absolutely awesome. But that's probably the biggest organisation we're a part of, and no one's ever heard of them.
So that's fascinating. So the point is, you send in a facilitator, you get as big a group as you possibly can in that room, right?
We go to 100, only 100 for us.
100 is the cap?
Yeah, because our sessions are really interactive. So if we go more than 100, we can't provide our 2 facilitators can't provide the same adequate quality.
Right. So it's 100 and there's 2 facilitators.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the training, because here's what I want to get into the weeds about, is the fact that in the work that you do and the work that I do, we can easily trigger people, right?
Yep.
And you're walking on eggshells with some people, right? And you're going to a younger demographic who are way more vulnerable. What's kind of like the average age of the young adults that you'll speak to?
16 to 34
Yeah, wow.
is usually the average age. So how ours works is we've got a lived experience facilitator, but we have a welfare professional. So a trained counsellor, psychologist, mental health nurse.
So they're wingmanning the facilitator in?
100% on every session.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And then, to give you a bit of an idea of our process, you have to fill out a 35-question EOI form first to be a lived experience facilitator. Each individual that wants to be a facilitator with OTLR, then you've got to go through an interview process with us to make sure that you are, number one, you're safe with your own mental health first. So if you're still going through a journey and you're still really struggling, you're trying to tell your story as a therapy tool, you're going to be triggering just in that aspect anyway. So, okay, where's our self-care going? That 35-question EOI form, you can tell really quickly those that are sort of like, oh, this just could be fun, and those who really want to make a change, because the difference in their responses is huge. We then go through 2 days worth of training, and inside that training is how do you facilitate your facilitation skills? How do you work with your welfare? We call them welfare champions. How do you work with your welfare champions? How do you co-facilitate with that person? So if someone goes, hey, here's this question on depression, as a facilitator, don't answer it. Pass it to the welfare champ. That's what they're being trained for. And if they don't know the answer, we just go, we don't know the answer. Let's catch up at the end of the session. Then we go, the biggest thing that we work on is safe storytelling. So we have a 20-page document that's about, we call it the safe story, the storytelling playbook. And it goes into, is your story safe for you? Are you ready to share the details that you want to in a session where there's 100 people there? is it safe for the people in the room? And then is it safe for that story to potentially be told as secondhand? Because you could go in there, share your experiences. Someone goes, it goes home to tell their mum, hey, this person came in and they said this, and that's what they went through. So it may be a safe space for them there, but is it going to be safe for everybody else? So
just to jump in there, what is an unsafe story?
So I'll give you an example. We've got a facilitator in WA that's a 20-year veteran police officer. So obviously you've seen lots of different things. So he came in, really awesome. Yeah, really awesome with the training, really jumped on everything. And then the feedback was, mate, if I didn't have the storytelling playbook and this training on how to tell my story, he goes, I would have triggered hundreds of people. And then the way he shifts his story to not have any triggering aspects, yet still get across the heartfelt and the understanding of
story as a copper for 20 years. Jeez, he'd have to water it right down, right?
Yeah, but when you hear it, it's amazing. Like the way he moves through that without triggering anybody is just incredible and has a massive impact on school kids as well.
Your emphasis on the storytelling, because I remember when we met the other night at this event, that you were talking about the storytelling, I'll show you mine before you show me yours kind of situation, right? It opens up the door. The more vulnerable, the more authentic you are, the more it's you, the more it's heartfelt. That gives license, permission for the recipient, the kids in this case, to open up, right? So with that in mind, do you find that you really got to get into the detail of the stories and it only takes a little push? And why is storytelling? Is it because storytelling is disassociative?
So I guess how we run our sessions is our lived experience facilitators will tell part of their journey at the start of our first session when we go into a community. And then throughout, because they are interactive, so your points around what are the signs, hey, start a conversation, or how do you want to be supported, or, we've got leadership and culture as well. So what's been a really good leader, or drugs and alcohol is another session that we do. So if you want to put a personal spin on it, which makes people feel that they can sort of talk about what they're going through, as you've already said, is sort of really good. And we use that as a really powerful tool, but we don't go over the top with it. Like you've probably seen sessions where someone just talks about themselves the whole time. Whereas ours is, if we need it, brilliant. It's a tool that we can use, but we want the people in the room to go, well, these are the signs that I noticed. And we put them into groups of 8 or 10, and the conversations that occur in that group are massive. And you always watch the one, it's not just ever a man, it's both men and women. They'll sit there and crossed arms. They don't want to be involved. And then as soon as you go, well, what are the signs? You guys have got 3 minutes. You come up with it. They go, oh shit, I actually get to express what I know here. And they're usually the ones that know the most. So storytelling is really powerful. And going back to your point around having other people to share and do we need the details? No, you don't. You don't need the details. You don't need methods. You don't need locations for it to still hit home. It can just be as simple as, mate, I feel the same way. I've gone through something similar. Why don't you tell me what you're going through currently? And they start to open up, and you've got to be ready for that as well. I think that's the other really important part is, are you emotionally ready for potentially triggering aspects to yourself? Because a lot of people out there don't have a filter. They're going to tell you the nitty gritties of everything. They haven't had the training you've had.
It can quickly escalate into a full-on confession session, right? So how do you mitigate that? Or do you? Like if someone's just going for it and, and then, in a room, and I've had this as well. And I like what you said before. There is a big difference between a, keynote speaker, presenter guy and a facilitator. It's not about the person, the presenter. It's all about the facilitation of the conversations. How do you mitigate with people like oversharing?
It's one of those things you got to be prepared for, and we train our facilitators.
Does it happen often?
Not as much in our session. So the way we've currently structured ours is they're very structured, and they are structured in a way where we ask a specific question and we want a specific response for that question, or we provide a specific activity. And we've tried to mitigate the possibility as much as we possibly can for those triggering aspects to come out when you potentially got 100 people in the room. When those potential triggering aspects come out is when someone comes up to our facilitator or our welfare champion at the end and goes, hey, this is what I'm going through. And then they start to share personally. And then that way, if our facilitator can't, doesn't have the skills at that point in time or is exhausted from the session, we've already got your counselor or psychologist there that we can refer them to straight away, and then they can refer on from there as well. So I don't think you can ever get rid of it fully, but we've tried to structure our sessions in a way where the oversharing happens once everyone's gone, and we give people a platform to
their own.
Yeah. And then we get the feedback as well of, everyone's gone home. Coach has got a message saying, hey, mate, I'm actually going through something at the moment. That's why I haven't been at training. That's why I've been a little bit miss at the moment, and we also say to them too, if you're not ready to share and not ready to open up on all the details, you don't have to, but you can at least let someone know, hey, I'm going through something at the moment. And, in my experience, a lot of the time that's enough for people. They'll turn around in 6 months' time. They'll go, mate, thanks so much for me letting you say that I'm going through something. I'm feeling 100 times better now and I feel great. And you go, awesome, mate. You don't have to turn around and go, well, what were you going through? Because then you bring in rehashing old trauma.
Yeah.
So you can just be simple.
So results, can you think of specific case studies, like running an organization like this? Is you can get compassion fatigue, you can go, there's a lot to take on, a lot of conversations, a lot of heavy conversations. What are the things that keep you engaged, mate, and you and the team engaged? I'd imagine it's somewhat like, with what I do, it's the little aha moments, it's the little shares, it's the full-on case studies that you hear, the results of people later on down the track, swinging back, circling back to you and sharing. What are the specific kind of results or case studies, aha moments that have kept you engaged and kept you, really leading the charge of this?
So the guys, we've got 6 core staff members, and then we've got about 50 to 60 people around the country that go out and run our sessions. So they all have different stories. So I can only sort of really use my ones. But 2 years ago, or last year, we had 2 goals, and our goals over 10 years are to reduce suicides in 10 years by 30%. And we know we can't do that alone. So we try and network with a lot of different organizations and, understand that that's sort of where we want to go, and also be accessible to all sporting clubs in Australia in 10 years. Now, when the suicide stats finally came out this year, and they were late, by the way, and it was really frustrating.
What were they? Give me those. What were they?
So, mate, then what were the numbers? So it was 3,245. It had gone up by close to 100 before. I've completely lost the number in my head now, but it had gone up by 100 in the year. So it was 3,000. No, 100 suicides. So where we're trying to go, right, there's all these organizations and there's all these programs and everyone's doing all these things, but suicide still went up. So that hit us pretty hard for a couple of days. And then someone turned around and said, we haven't had a suicide in any of our connected communities for a year to 2 years. Now, the suicides that we've supported communities for, because we've got referral partners that go out and provide suicide grief support that we link our communities to. Those communities that we'd provided that referral to weren't actually doing our program. They were communities outside that couldn't get any support from their local area. Their local counsellors and psychologists were too busy. Their local council didn't know where to send them. And then they heard that just through the grapevine that we knew someone, and that standby support after suicide, fully government funded organization, absolutely amazing. It's pretty bad. But for someone to turn around and go, hey, we haven't had a suicide in a while. That was a really aha moment for me, going, okay, well, whatever we're putting into place now, it's also, there could have been suicides out there that we hadn't heard of, that our sporting clubs hadn't come to us for. But usually a sporting club will turn to us and go, hey, this happened. And we had a few of them a long, long time ago where they come to us and they go, hey, unfortunately, this happened in our community. We haven't had one for, as I said, a year to maybe 2 years. But then the other ones are, you get the message back from your community contact going, oh, mate, I've had 10 people come up to me and tell me what that they're going through something at the moment that I wouldn't even have known on. And now we've opened up a conversation where it's a lot better. Or you get community, or mainly sporting clubs, will turn around and go, we feel so much more connected through this. And the big one for me was, I was going through a pretty rough patch 6 weeks ago. Did the whole in the shower in the morning, like, I have to put a mask on today. I'm not feeling this.
This is
and
you
I have to go and run this was me personally, yeah. So I was driving 3.5 hours to go and run an hour session at a high school. And I was like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do it. I pulled into the car park of the high school and was like, I'm going to turn around and go home. I'm just going to tell them I'm sick. Went in, and the high school was it's in regional Victoria. There's not much around it. I'd been to the football, netball, hockey club earlier in the year and done our mental health and our leadership and culture, which is our leadership and culture is where you set goals for the year. And I walked into the year 11s. It was mainly, most of them there's 14 year 11s in the year level. That's all there is, because it's a small high school. And the girls walked in and they said, oh, we're excited you were coming back. And I was like, oh, why is that? And they said, oh, we've got to tell you about our goals. And their goal was to win a game in netball. They hadn't won a game the season before. They wanted to win a game. And they said, we won a game. I said, did you? And they go, yeah, we won 4. And they were so excited. It wasn't a grand final. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't they win by 100 points. It was to win 1 game, and they were so excited they won 4. If they were like, we set that goal, and then all we were focusing on was trying to win a game, and they won it in like round 3, and they're like, oh, we'll try and win another one. So that for me is,
They just wanted to give you that feedback of success.
Yeah, and that was success for them. You turn around to other clubs, their success is we need to win a granny, and we need all 5 teams in our club to win a granny. But for them, it was just to win 1 game. So because I guess the other thing with our OTLR the myth that we're trying to get away from is we're not just a mental health charity, and we're not men's mental health, because everyone plays sport. So we're men, women, non-binary, kids, adults, older adults. So that was the big one that was pushing me. I'm like, cool, our leadership and culture session, we know it's a really good session. We know people get stuff out of it, but to see it really come into play for a team that wasn't aiming grand final, they were just aiming win 1 game. That was really cool.
Mate, what do we need to do more of, less of in terms of mental health?
That's a good question. I think the first and foremost is the accessibility to support. So counsellors, psychologists, that sort of stuff, the accessibility to it. Just personally, I get messages from mates going, hey, I'm going through a really difficult time. Like, where do I go? So your mental health care plan's your one way, which is your 10 sessions. But then you're waiting 6 to 12 months to actually get into a psychologist. And psychologists usually up their rate to then get more money on top of the subsidy anyway. Then you've got counsellors as well. Again,
that's a big gap, isn't it? That's a huge vulnerable time, isn't it? That's nuts.
Yeah, it's a big gap. And you got counsellors, you got organisations like Redefine Life who we work with that will utilise lots of different counsellors to come in and provide support. But the education on telehealth, I think, is another one too. So we work a lot in regional and rural areas where they've got maybe 1 psychologist in the whole area. So actually educating that community to go, hey, you can actually get telehealth if you wanted to, and understanding where to actually go to get that support. One of the big things that we get is, I wouldn't even know.
Just while we're on, telehealth, like, just explain that. How does one access that?
So I guess that's the thing in education. You've got to find an organisation that provides it, or a counsellor or a psychologist that provides it. And telehealth is through your Zoom or your Skype on your computer and doing your sessions that way. So it is a lot less personal, but at least it's something for those who are in regional rural areas.
We're not talking about Lifeline here or Beyond Blue.
No, we're talking about that, which is that sort of crisis support area. We're talking about the prevention side of things. So, okay, I'm having a bad day at the moment, or I'm having a bad couple of weeks. Where can I go and get that support really quickly? And the system, I think everyone knows, is pretty broken. It's a long wait to get into places, and especially if you're regional rural and you've only got 1 psychologist that's an hour away, you're not going to drive there, and they're probably going to be pretty busy already to get into. So that's one, is the accessibility, but I think it then also goes into the education and getting back into the positive mental well-being skills that people have lost. The stuff that you try and do. Okay, what is on your bucket list? Well, go and strive for that rather than the new car, the new house, the promotion at work, all that sort of stuff.
The things that give you meaning, purpose, fulfillment, gratitude.
Yeah,
for sure.
We did, obviously you do the gratitude work as well, but we did it at a high school the other day, and there was nothing in there around money, house, job, anything like that. It's always watch my kids play sport, getting out for a walk with a dog. Like, whether people are they're under pressure to write that down because they think that's the right answer, or they're doing it because that's what they really feel. We've done too much of it for it to be, I'm under pressure that I need to write the right answer. It's always, well, these are the actual things that you feel. So you need to go and do more of that. But also for mental health is, how do we get people off the technology and back into a community?
Yeah.
And encouraging those communities in any way possible.
We talked about the other night, the loneliness epidemic. You would have come across that, right? That's real. Have you seen that?
It's a really interesting one, because I guess with what the sessions that we run, we're always going into a sporting club or a community group where these people are really getting around each other as much as possible. Where we start to see it, we start to see people get nervous, is at the end of their sessions, and at the end of their season, where they know they've got...
Yeah, go back into their normal life kind of thing.
And one of the big pushes by our national manager, Tim Cook, is how do we encourage people at the end of, whether it's winter or summer season, to stay connected to the people who are part of their community, because that's when they're going to get lonely. And we really see it too around the regional rural areas. So when we go there, we go, well, what are the signs and symptoms? And the reason why we don't tell everyone what the signs and symptoms are is because They're completely different for people that are in the city to people that are in rural areas. When I go to a club that's in a rural area, a sign that always comes up is someone that doesn't come to footy or netball training. And I go, okay, well, why? And that's the same in the city, but I go, well, right, why is that the sign here? And they go, well, they work on a farm 7 days a week. So if they don't come Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, something's wrong, because this is their outlet away from that work. So we see a lot of it more in that regional rural area where it's just go, go, go 7 days a week. You're on a tractor, you're by yourself, there's not much happening. And it's about giving people the skills to how to stay connected. So your phone's a great one for making phone calls and doing text messages and sending. I got mates that just send me random videos on Instagram all the time. That's how we communicate. And then we catch up in person. It's all great. But there's a lot of people out there that aren't potentially utilizing the phone in a positive way. They just use it as a negative way and they just flick. There's also those people that aren't taking the hour or 2 hours a week to at least go and get involved or go and see 3 or 4 mates and try and stay connected that way. What's the cure to it? I don't have an answer for you, because more and more people are starting to recluse themselves and not trying to get out there again.
Yeah, I mean, I asked that question because your phones, social media, etc., is a big contributor to, from my understanding, the loneliness epidemic. You know, where we're comparing the famous quote, we're comparing our behind the scenes footage with someone else's highlights reel. You know, we don't go knee to knee, face to face, belly to belly anymore. You know, we don't catch up as much as we used to. We should rather just DM someone, and we're all doing it. But one of the pieces of advice that I always give as well is for people to be proactive rather than reactive. And that is value friendship, value community, value sporting clubs, value the opportunity to come together. It doesn't have to, come together and get on the piss. But it's just come together and be more proactive, and don't rely on your friends to do it. Don't rely on your mates. You've got to make the change. Be the change you want to see in other people.
On that's a really good one. So we've got a great ambassador and facilitator, Liam Stocker, and we went and saw him do a keynote speak. I think it was a week or two ago. And he had a really good line in there. And I've been doing this for a really, really long time. Liam's only 23, only been doing it for a couple of years. But you can learn off everybody. I think that's a big thing people need to note, is it doesn't matter about age. You can learn from anybody. I really learned from Liam that night, because one of the lines that he used was, if you can't find it, be the first, which is exactly what you're saying. So if your mates aren't reaching out to you, guess what? You be the first. And at some point down the track, like I got a message from a mate yesterday just saying, have a good day. Now, I do them randomly all the time and don't usually get them from people, but hey, I got it yesterday from one mate who's done it for the first time this year. So keep being the first, and keep being, as you said, keep being the change you want to see in the world. You've got to take that first step.
Yeah, 100%. And it gets worse as you get older. I'm 50 now, and, it's on the rare occasion, like, because you got the mortgages, and then you got the property, and then you got the job, and then you got your partner's got a job, and you got kids, and you're running around after them. Like, actually connecting with people on the regular becomes harder and harder and harder. And I think, anyone watching or listening to this right now, is what Todd's saying is, be the change, get on the front foot. Don't rely on your mates. They're hopeless. Be the one that organises the coffee date, and look, if you're stuck for time, to do a group coffee date, one to many, you're ticking you're basically killing a lot of birds with the same stone, right? And so
on what you were saying before, just in regards to, like, be the change and be the first, and it does get harder as you get older and all that sort of stuff. A really good chat with a mate one night, and if you take you basically have a look at his life. Very, very successful. Business is very successful. Got the family, the house, all the toys, all that sort of stuff. Very successful. And we're sitting around a fire one night in a mate's backyard. And he's like, right here is where you find out about everybody. Because no one gives a shit what you have. No one cares what you're doing. No one gives a crap about your job or your status, all that sort of stuff. If you can't be a good person around a fire, where there is no telltale signs of your life outside of this moment, people aren't going to want to hang around with you. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand, is like, I'm trying to change the bigger house or the bigger car, and all trying to chase all these things. Or they go, I don't want to get back out there into community because I'm going to be judged. Well, guess what? No one really gives a shit about you, because as soon as you go down to a footy club and you're in the change rooms or locker rooms or in the club rooms there, no one knows what car you have. No one knows what house you live in. It's basically just you as a human being. And if you know you're a good human being, you can get yourself back out
Direct
there.
correlation. There's a direct correlation between ego, which your programs are all about, dropping the ego, being vulnerable, right? But some people, especially blokes, have a lot of trouble with that, dropping the ego. And once you drop their ego, there's a direct correlation between how people will open up to you and how you'll start helping other people. So for people that are, watching and listening to this, if your ego is getting in your way, then identify it, number one, and get yourself into situations that you can start sharing. And, using that campfire analogy, get around the campfire, because that's where the stories are shared. That's where the camaraderie is met. And that's where a lot of people tend to be afraid of as well. So, my 2 cents there is find those campfires, wherever you are in life, because they might be right under your nose and you don't even know it, right?
They're everywhere, really. They're running groups. They're, people that just go down for a coffee. There's library groups. They're everywhere. You start to have a look. They're your gyms. They're your F45s, your BFTs, all that sort of stuff. When you go into these places, I think this is the big thing for a lot of people. And it's hard for me. I'm quite a fit person. So if I'm like, just go down, it'll be fine. I've had mates and people that are a little bit more unfit. Like, I want to go in there and get judged. I'm like, mate, no one cares. Literally nobody cares. I've been a personal trainer for a really, really long time. No, it's the only person that's caring about you struggling or you getting down there and meeting new people is you. Because as soon as you walk in, you walk into that coffee group or you walk into that walking group or you go down a local gym or you go down to your men's shed or whatever it may be, people are just excited to have a new friend. And I think that's the hardest thing in life is to make friends.
It really is. And as we sort of wrap this up too, like I said before, I'm 50, everyone's busy. And you kind of don't want to, it's weird, you don't want to disrupt them because they've got their life and they're run around with their kids on weekends and stuff like that. But, I grew up surfing, surf lifesaving as part of the surf club, grew up as a swimmer as well. So I was always kind of social. And then again, life, I was never involved in a footy club. I was always kind of doing individual sports, although it was social. But I've, in the last sort of, 5 to 10 years, getting a lot older, is I'm now a cyclist. I'm a fully qualified mammal. That's a middle-aged man in Lycra, ladies and gentlemen. It's something you don't want to see at 6 a.m. in the morning, but I do cycling for that reason, because I'm getting up. Yes, I'm accountable. I'm doing some cardio, but it's the coffee conversation afterwards. That's the most important part. I feel robbed if we don't go and have a coffee afterwards. On the very rare occasion, if only 2 blokes turn up, we might go, oh yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. But it's the coffee conversations afterwards. And I've even pre-framed surfing as well now too. So, I surf certain breaks around here. I'm in Ocean Grove, and I can always guarantee that, the same guys will be out there in the water. And so it's the car park conversations that you have afterwards, or it's the sitting out the back conversations that you're having. And that might result in having a brekkie afterwards, or having a coffee chat afterwards. But I've had to reframe that as something that I want. I've been through mental health stuff myself. And you can always, if I'm working from home, I'm running my own business, you can become a recluse pretty easy. And so the surfing, the bike riding, going to the local gym have all been very, very, very purposeful to get me out of my little cave and get out and amongst people. And that's probably why I do public speaking as well.
It's a really good point. It's a scary thing to take the first step for a lot of people. But if we go right back to the start of this, it's what do you do for fun? What makes you happy? One of the big ones, you try and with your mates or with new people, if you actually ask that question, you get them to list the 11 to 15. Now, one of my big ones is I love Batman. I'm a massive Batman nerd. Yeah.
So you're going Collingwood and Batman, mate. Maybe, I don't know if we're going to actually make this live from here on, but it's go for it.
Yeah, no, it's so everywhere. So for me, it's gym and running and seeing mates and the dogs and most of the sort of normal things that most people would have, but it's those 3 or 4 that are sort of sideways. So Pokemon, Batman, gaming, the stuff that when you look at me, you probably wouldn't know, but it's where those little tidbits come in and the mates that you now would get that you would think, oh, I wouldn't have been mates with you if I'd actually didn't ask you that question. So I listen to heavy metal screamer music. None of my really, really, really close mates that will probably be in my bridal party would listen to that music at all. But I've got a separate group of mates that, they really like it. And there's other things that we like. And then when those two groups come together, everyone actually gets along because it's like, oh, I like doing football, or I like reading, so you can find a common ground with everybody. And if you see me going, I'm nervous and I can't get back out there, or I can't go to the local gym, or I can't ride, or I can't go for a walk, go down the dog park and say hello to someone, trust me, you'll find a common interest with pretty much everybody.
One of the things that I've really been conscious of over the last year, or really coming out of COVID, is actually expanding that network. And, I live in a small coastal town, but I actively, and I do it every day, I actively try and meet a new person every day and remember their name. And as a grown-ass man, that can be a mean feat. One, because, the memory is not what it used to be. But two, you got to put yourself in situations where you're actually meeting people, or it's I see you all the time at the coffee shop and, I thought I'd introduce myself. It takes a bit of courage, but actively, it's amazing the conversations that can come out of that.
And it's just going back to how we were pre-technology, really.
Some of us are old enough to actually remember those days too, mate.
Yeah. Do you actually say hello to the person who makes you coffee in the morning? Most people don't. They just go, this is what I want. No worries. Then you see the person behind the machine making the actual coffee. Do you actually walk up to them and go, hey, thanks very much, really appreciate it? And then the next day you go, what's your name? And then you then start having actual conversations when you go in there while they're working. You're right, though. Try and meet someone new every day and remember their name. It takes a bit of courage and it takes a bit of willpower from you to go, okay, let's get back out there. And this could probably be a really good thing for my mental health and a really good thing for my mental well-being by getting back out in the community in a really positive way.
Yeah, look, we had it taken away from us for a while there, thanks to the pandemic, mate. Expansion plans before we wrap up. What's the goals for 2024 look like for Outside the Locker Room?
Yeah, so I guess for us is just to keep doing what we do well and keep the quality really, really high. So the really good thing for OTLR is that, the feedback from our sessions is really, really good. We're obviously seeing great impact in terms of people getting support when they need it, providing support to communities when they need it as well. And for us, it's just to try and get into as many more communities as we possibly can. And obviously, with our wellbeing partnerships, there's a lot of different sports, which then encompass a lot of different sporting clubs inside of their association or their organization. So getting out to more of them would be really good. But a big one for us is trying to maintain the relationships that we have. So not just be a fly in, fly out organization. So if we've been to an organization in 23, we want to stay with them in 24 and beyond and keep supporting their community with their mental health. And as I said, no news is good news in our line of work. So if a sporting club doesn't call us and go, hey, we've had this challenge, that's a great year for OTLR. And we're not looking for, only organizations or clubs that are winning grand finals. We're after those, everybody, and those, as I said, those stories of we won a game. Awesome. I'm not going to say that it was us that helped them win the game because it wasn't. They did the work. But to be able to have them turn around and go, hey, we set those goals in your sessions and we achieved them. Awesome. That's absolutely great. So maintain what we're doing, maybe work with some more sporting clubs moving forward, keep having impact, keep working towards that reduction of 30% in suicides. And that's going to take everyone that we know coming together and supporting each other. So we never look at any other organization as a competition. I think that at times others may look at it and go, oh, they're getting funding here or there. For us, it's like, look at the amazing work everyone else is doing. How can we support them to keep doing that? Do we refer other organizations, other clubs or schools to them and go, that's what you're looking for? Well, hey, our program does this, but this program over here does what you're actually looking for better. Maybe you should go with them. And we've done that a lot in the past. So just keep doing that and hopefully lead by example of that sort of stuff that in 10 years' time, in 2032, we've at least reduce the suicides in some way.
Beautiful. Todd Morgan, CEO of Outside the Locker Room, and it's otlr.org.au, and you're on the socials as well. Where's most of the noise happening and what's the handles?
Instagram for us at OTLR is the main place that we post most things, but we'll increase the YouTube early next year. So keep an eye out on the YouTube for more stories coming there.
Awesome, mate. Thanks heaps for jumping on the Bucket List Life podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bucket List Life podcast with the world's #1 bucket list expert, Trav Bell. For more great content, go to www.thebucketlistguy.com. We'll see you next time.